repeaters, this is Jan Foscante, and she is a 5th grade teacher, and I just need to read some things about her that she's passionate about. We were just having a brief conversation here before we dive into her lesson, and welcome. This is our 3rd spotlight on a digital lesson, and Jan Foscante is a 5th grade teacher, and she's very passionate about loving school, getting kids engaged in student activities. Why don't you tell us what you're passionate about?
I am. I'm very passionate in promoting a love of school. So not only can we get them here, but we can keep them here, and they're excited to be here. And I am passionate about that through, I engage in that through activities, building relationships, and creating engaging lessons. And a lot of times, my most engaging and successful lessons have a really integral technology component. And I feel that that's very important because not only do I want to get that engagement, but I also want them to be able to compete and to be able to compete with other 21st century learners.
Cool. So now you've been teaching for how long?
This is actually my 2nd year, but I've been in education for 10 years. I was a sub for about 8 years, but this is my 2nd year with my own class.
Cool. Okay. So what we're going to do now is, why don't we actually just go through your lesson and share that. And the title of Jan's lesson was Key to Keyword Search?
Yes.
Okay.
The key to keywords.
Key to keywords. All righty. So how did you feel about the lesson?
I feel it was very successful. My students loved it. It definitely pointed out some holes that I need to fill with future lessons, which I found to be very useful.
Okay.
And this was a lesson that I was looking for. And when I found it, I knew it was exactly what I wanted. Last year, I really struggled with how to get my students to successfully research and how to teach that. And I was looking for something that could help me. And I do feel that this did.
Oh, good. Okay, so we'll just kind of walk through it. Okay. And you can kind of just go ahead and give us a little guide through that.
Okay, some of the objectives were to experiment with different keywords and different combinations of keywords and be able to compare the results with other groups. We also wanted to learn how to refine our searches or narrow our searches through the use of multiple words and synonyms and alternative words, and looking at those results again and comparing how different they are. And the next one was to draw inferences to explain those search results. Why did they have different results? What about them was different from another group, and which words they choose and in which combination?
Cool. So now, did your students, did they ask you about the vocabulary?
They did. Vocabulary is definitely something that I would have done differently in this lesson. We absolutely discussed vocabulary. We did a whole group. We did some think, pair, share using the vocabulary. And since some of it, I didn't feel that it was too foreign, so I thought we had done enough. But as we went through the process of the lesson, I knew that next time when I do it, I will definitely front load it more and do a more formal vocabulary lesson.
Okay. And you're going to share some of the notes that the kids took later with the vocabulary?
Yes.
That you did?
Yes.
Okay. So where would you like to go from here?
Well, this did cover a lot of our reading and writing standards and research standards. There was a plethora of standards that this covers, which was very useful, obviously. Some of those were quoting accurately, determining the meaning of general academic terms, accuracy and comprehension with our research terms.
Did you find that in this Common Sense Media lesson that you used, did you find that some of the standards could have been a little bit much, or did you tell me
They were
how?
very broad.
Okay.
I feel that some of them were a little too broad. So I just really stuck to the ones that I feel that the lesson hit, and those definitely were the research-based ones and the collaborative aspects where they were comparing their results.
Okay.
Those were accurate to my standards. The writing ones, not so much. I didn't feel it was really hitting those writing standards.
Okay, do you feel as though probably maybe if you go more in depth with the actual lesson, you would probably hit the writing a little bit more?
I think with different tweaks, different questions, different ways to demonstrate their answers, definitely we could have hit writing more.
I liked how you said that. You're adapting a lesson to fit the needs of your students at that time.
Absolutely. This one, my focus was research for the most part, but I could definitely tweak this and make this more focused towards writing with research.
Good. Sounds good. So what is our next step? You want to go into your actual, I think you were telling me about the fetch activity that you were using.
Yes. One thing I love about this Common Sense Media lesson was it does have that hook or that anticipatory set, that engagement part. And my students after the lesson were asking to do it again because they liked it so much. So before the fetch, we did a little warm up or a little engagement lesson where I had a box in the front of the classroom that I had pre-filled with regular classroom items. And I had students come up, pick any object in the box that they would like and describe it. I did not give them any more details than that other that they couldn't use the actual name of the item. Okay. And we did that with several students. And then afterwards, we had a whole group discussion on why was it easier to get student A's, to guess student A's object than it was student B. And they inevitably said things like, well, she gave us more information, or she used more exact words. And it was very easy to transition from that to what happens when you use keywords in your search engine. So it was a very easy transition. And I'm not sure that I would have thought of that activity on my own had it not been in the lesson. And the kids loved it. They were so excited. They wanted to keep doing it.
Cool.
But after that, we started our fetch activity.
Okay.
So we were placed into pairs.
Okay.
To aid with our collaboration and our communication.
Okay, so I'll just share that part of the activity with our audience so they can see that as you talk us through it. Let's see, and that was it this activity here?
Yes, okay. So we started with fetch. So students were assigned a question and I kept track, I kept little tallies. There was 4 questions to choose from and I had to make sure that at least 2 of the groups got the same question, so that afterwards they could compare their results and collaborate together. So students were off in pairs and they were assigned a question, and then they had to use this fetch activity
this page. Mm-hmm.
To really think about the keywords that they were using. They had to start with one word and then make note of how many results they got from that. And inevitably they were in, the hundreds of millions. Then they answer the question, did they find the answer to the question? And inevitably with one word, it was always no.
Let me ask you this. When kids had to document the number of search results that they actually had access to, did they find that interesting that that number changed with each search? Was that a new feature for them?
It was a new feature and I didn't realize it would be a new feature. Okay. So when I said, go ahead and write down your search results, they're like, oh, okay, yeah. And then when I saw them actually participating in the activity, I'm like, oh, we don't know where that is, do we? Okay. So I had to do, give me a 33, put your screens at, 3/4 or whatever. And look at me, look at the screen. Let me show you where they are first. Got it? Okay, let's get back to work. But that was definitely one of those holes that I didn't realize existed. Okay. But of course, that's a real quick one to pick up. So yes, and actually I was able to bring in some math too. And I had them bring out their little flip charts where we had with place value and to really compare how much smaller that was. Yeah. And I really felt for my EL learners, that's where it really gelled for them. Like, oh yeah, that's like 200 times more results or 200,000 times more results. Okay. So that was pretty cool. And then they were asked to pick 2 words with their partner. And that's another collaboration piece for them where they had to discuss which 2 words do we think that we could find our answer to. And they would try that with 2 words, record the results, and answer whether they were able to find it or not. And the way that they looked is they had to look at the first 3 websites that came up with their search and be able to do a brief search, a minute or 2, by looking at the menu, going through the website and seeing if they could easily and efficiently find their answer. Okay. If they couldn't, then the answer is a no, and we need to add another keyword.
So while they were doing this, they went from 1 word to 2 words to additional words, did they notice that the search results decreased or did it increase? What were they noticing?
Decreased. And we used the word narrow and narrowing.
Oh, sorry.
Well, and again, that was a word I didn't realize that they didn't know how to use in a different way. Okay. So narrowing that's when, again, we had to have a little powwow as a class and really talk about that vocabulary again. And again, this is where it extended the time of the lesson that I wasn't anticipating.
Right.
But it was a very valuable discussion. And now I even, I hear them use that word on a daily basis. Now they like it, along with precise, which was another one of our vocabulary words.
Don't you love it when they get it in their oral
it's so
language?
fun. Like, it's like, yay, I'm a good teacher. Yeah. But yeah, so we used that vocabulary, but like I said, it was one of the hangups. And then, yes, they absolutely noticed that it was narrowing and decreasing the amount of search results and therefore giving them a more precise and accurate answer.
Awesome. So let's see. I'm going to go back to, I should have continued to share. Which component of the lesson you want to look at now?
I think doggy data was the next activity that we did. And I should mention, I did do these over 2 days.
Okay.
Because it did extend our time. The allotted time was 45 minutes. I would say it took me double that. And although I wasn't expecting that, I don't feel like it was time wasted. I don't want to say that, but just a lot more time for it.
Okay. But that's good to know.
Yeah. And like I said, time well used, but way more than I had anticipated.
Okay.
So the next thing we did was the doggy data.
What that's on? Is that this year?
No.
Further up?
Doggy data. Yeah.
Got it.
There we go. So this one, all students were given, within the pair, one per pair, and but they have the same questions on them this time. And this time it was a bit of a competition to be able to find the answer with the fewest keywords used. And then they had to, of course, record the sites that they found that information. And it does say 2 sites because I've already taught them that we need to find our information on more than one website to help us be more confident that it's accurate. And that doesn't always mean it is, but at least if we found it on 3 websites, hopefully there's a better chance that it's more accurate. This one only asked for 2, so that's fine. I stuck with 2 for the lesson, but my students are used to 3, to finding it on 3 places.
Really good.
And then we got together as a whole group and really talked about, and I gave some dojo points here and there, and it's a little bit of a competition, just what words did you use? Okay, let's all try it. Oh, yep, you're right. They did find it right there. So that was fun. And it was fun to demonstrate how to navigate websites and differently. Okay. You know how some students go straight to the menu. Some students want to scroll all the way down,
Yeah. And one thing that I was going to mention when you said, I like the fact that you said you have your kids to do like 3 comparison searches. In addition to the original, you have them do 3 additional?
Well, 3 total. I do 3 total, yeah.
But this one only calls for what,
2.
1 additional one?
Well, they wanted you to find it on 2 sites.
Okay.
And I usually do 3. Google can, count as 1 if it's in that first little box when you search something, but then you need to find it in 2 more websites.
Got it. And I think, which, for 5th grade students, that would be great to have them do more additional sites, because when we look at the Common Sense Media, this lesson pretty much ranges for grades 3, 4, and 5. So maybe a 3rd grader, because they're just getting their feet wet, will probably just do, probably the 2. But I like how you already have your kids diving into the 3. But continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. So, yeah, that's what we did on our doggy data. The students were fully engaged in the discussion afterwards and a little competitive in a good way. So it was fun. And like I said, just seeing how they navigate websites and demonstrating that for everyone, I feel like we all benefited from that.
Okay.
After that, we did have a more formal discussion so that I could assess more properly. And some students, as we know, express themselves better through written word. So we did that on Google Classroom through the discussion piece. So they were all given the same questions, but the responses were, of course, varied and, again, useful. We went over it whole class. We made some comments. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that part. Or, yeah, she's right. And, again, I had that concrete evidence to formally assess if I wanted to.
Okay, cool. So, and overall, you think they did pretty good for their first time with this lesson? Absolutely.
And like I said, this was something I was looking for. And not only did it fill the need of just, like, getting in there, getting the basics of research, but it also pointed out those other holes that I need to fill before 6th grade.
So, which is good. So now, do you see yourself actually, if you were to present this lesson again to the class prior to, the end of the year, do you see doing some differentiating for your students, or?
Absolutely. And I did some with this activity as well.
Oh, really?
I had my students who were on an IEP or had identified academic needs. I allowed them to be in a trio, 3s. One, so that they could be supported, and I did have one student who I would consider to be particularly high in those groups, so that one, they could be supported. Also, those students do come and go a lot, and this did span over a 2-day period, and I still wanted them involved in the lesson. And I also thought two of them are very shy and are not very confident with communication. I thought even if they're not really participating in the communication aspect of it verbally, that they would gain something from watching the other two and could jump in when they felt that they could participate. So I did find that to be very useful.
But I liked how you created opportunity for that group to participate at the level that they were comfortable participating. So
yes.
That's good.
Yes. I want some is better than none. And
Thank you.
Yes.
I like how you said
I know
that.
some people don't like to say that, but I firmly believe in that. At least they're catching some of it, they're grasping some of it, and then having those opportunities to jump in when they're comfortable. And yes, I did visit those groups more often and give them some DOK questioning, help bring it out just, a little bit, so that okay, they're getting it. All right.
And that really helps us as teachers to really gather data on those students, whether we, when we go around the room, and when we can, because we gather more data from those students who are most in need, but yet we also do gather data from the higher kids as well. But that's pretty cool. I like that, Foscante.
But I could differentiate more in the future. I would definitely give different topics, different questions, different levels of questions, things that I think would require more research than others. I think the opportunities for differentiation are
endless.
Pretty much, yeah. And this could be adapted to pretty much any unit, any research project.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Because the thing with differentiating, if you're not accustomed to it, if you don't do it on a regular basis, if you start somewhere, at least you're getting your feet wet with it, because it's challenging. It can be challenging. Lights.
Sorry.
Okay, there we go. All right.
Well, I think, as teachers in 2016, almost 2017, it's our responsibility to differentiate.
I love you.
Whenever possible. I mean, we have to.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love you. Okay, so here's one. Now, you talked about the collaborative piece and the communication piece within the lesson. So where in the lesson were we, moving on to the critical thinking piece, where were the students challenged the most?
They were challenged the most with the vocabulary. And like I said, I should have done more direct instruction with the vocabulary. Afterwards, we did do some 4-column notes in a Google Doc so that I could.
You mind if I share that right now?
No, absolutely.
Okay.
So that I could formally assess at the end if they did grasp the vocabulary. I didn't do it in the way I wanted to, but I wanted to see in the end result if they got it.
Okay.
And then, their exit ticket out to recess was they had to use one of the vocabulary words in a sentence. Little things like that all of us teachers do.
Okay.
But they love 4-column notes, and they especially love them in docs. So I didn't have to twist their arm to do this. So we did. And if you notice, I had to even add the word synonym to my 4-column notes, which I was a little disappointed as a teacher, because we've covered figurative language quite a bit already, including synonyms and metaphors and all those things as teachers we do, similes, all of that. I was just a little surprised, but once I stepped back and really thought about the lesson, I thought about the questions students were asking me, I realized that they just weren't used to using that word in a different context. They were literally used to just using it with our writing and talking about, words that are similar and the same. Because when I asked them in that way, they got it. But so to have them think about synonym in another way, and the way we use synonyms in this lesson, which I hadn't talked about yet, was you can modify your results and your keywords by using synonyms of other words.
I like that. I like how you talk about using it with a different context, for the students, because when they do only hear a term in one context, it tends to narrow their perspective or their view on that word, and it limits their usage.
And I think that happens a lot.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree. I like that, though. I like how you implemented that.
So this was just a short little formative assessment, but now I feel confident on the students that got the vocabulary, and I know which ones I need to revisit and reteach.
Okay. And this one, they just use different images.
They did, and some were the same. I noticed that with Precise, a lot of my students picked a bullseye picture because honestly, it was the first thing that came up. However, they were picking ones where they were not meeting the bullseye. And so that was, you know, it had dots all around the bullseye. And so, but that was a good opportunity for me to pull a group of all the kids who had that picture and let's talk about why we chose that picture. Inevitably, it was because it was the first one that popped up. But that offered for a conversation of why is that really not the best picture to pick, and it was because it was a picture of being not precise.
Yeah.
So I like this one because they did use a bullseye, but they obviously searched through their images more than just the top one and found one where they were actually hitting the bullseye, which makes a lot more sense.
So, and I'm hearing you, and now I'm seeing that when they actually do their searches, you know how we like to go for the very first one, you know, when it comes to content. And so this is just another reminder, don't always go with the first one. First one is not always the best one. So I like that. And
efficient is a word that is constantly used in my classroom. But like you said, we can be efficient, but we need to be logical. It needs to make sense. So yes, let's not go to the first one because it didn't make sense.
No, I like how you took advantage of that teaching moment. Anything else you want to share with this one here?
I don't think so. They're pretty straightforward. We use them in a sentence. We were using our highlighting feature and knowing how to insert grids and, you know.
Okay, sounds good. Now, let's see. Let's talk about what challenged you the most in the lesson.
Well, the most challenging aspect of it, and I'll be totally honest, I had not thought about it before. Not that I hadn't thought about the lesson. I hadn't thought about this question. It hadn't occurred to me until I started the lesson. And afterwards, I was like, oh, yeah, that's a good question. So as I'm working the room, when we started this lesson and the students were given their question, they started using their keywords. I went to my first group and they're just typing in the question. And I'm like,
in their search engine?
Yeah, they were they just typed in the question. And I was like, well, you know, let's think about our directions. What are we supposed to be doing? Let's read the activity.
Miss Bell, call the office, please. Miss Bell, call the office.
Interviews at school. That's what we do.
And one of my students just looked at me and said, well, why do I have to use words? Why can't I just type in the question? Because that's what I want, is the answer to this question. And like I said, I was just like, well, that's a really good question. And my answer is, and my answer was, that I'm teaching them skills in how to research in general. And that always typing in the question is not always going to give you the most accurate answers that you're looking for.
I like that.
But learning how to research. And and although, again, I do use the word efficient, and I do think it's important to be efficient. However, we want to be accurate. We want to get our best information. We want a quality product. And giving those keywords gives us a different search result. And we did compare. We did compare when you just type in the question and when you type in the keywords.
And one thing we were having a conversation about, you were talking about earlier about DOK levels when they search. And when they can put like a lower DOK level into those search engines, but when they start trying to put it like a DOK 3 or 4, what would be that experience?
Absolutely. And especially if it requires any type of question where it's their own thought within it, where they just need to research to answer the question, typing in that question is not going to give you that type of an answer. So as they get older and as we progress with research, they will be getting higher level questions, and those keywords are more effective for that than just typing in the question. And I feel like I have a better answer to that now and for next time. But
so
I was just like,
as you reflect on the lesson, you're seeing where you can justify.
Absolutely.
The kids.
And that is the answer. We're teaching how to research. And for those higher level questions and those, you know, harder topics, and especially as they get older,
giving them those life skills, because you won't always be able to drop that question into that search engine.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it, Mrs. Foscante. So anything else you want to add? Because our time is just about up. We're at 3:55.
Well, I just wanted to add, especially I would think, and I know there's some amazing third grade classes that can do wonderful things. I do think this is a good lesson for third grade to get their feet wet. I would spend a lot more time on the vocabulary for my third graders, and I'd spend more time just making sure that they know how to navigate the internet in general to be able to accomplish this lesson. And I would break it up. I would not even do this in 2 days. I would maybe have it as a week where we're doing little parts each week. But I definitely think it's valuable, and I would love to have the third graders that did this in third grade be in my fifth grade class, you know, because then there'll be leaps and bounds ahead.
So you actually see this being strongly introduced in third grade so that and spending more time with the lesson, even if it's in fourth, spending more time with the lesson so kids can walk away with more richer learning from it?
Yes,
Okay.
and then I can be introducing those higher level questions
Awesome.
and more research based independently, if you know what I mean, because that's my problem is they get so excited to research a topic, but they have no idea how to research accurately and efficiently. So if they got their feet wet in third, you know, did more of the lesson in fourth, then in fifth, I've really got something to work with.
Yeah.
And so I think it's valuable for third, fourth, and fifth, even sixth, if they haven't been exposed to this.
Those are good recommendations. I like them.
And I would try it, even if you wanted to do a whole group, everybody, just so you can see where the holes are in how they navigate the internet. I didn't even realize, this is something I also didn't bring up, that my students didn't know what a search engine was. They could, you know, once I told them, they were like, oh, you mean like Yahoo? Yeah. Oh, you mean like Google Chrome? Yes, absolutely. But they didn't know that term. Yeah. So little things like that they need to be able to compete with 21st century learners and to fully engage in these technology lessons, they need to have those skills.
And I think this is I know this is a valuable lesson. And there's so many, when we talk about teaching lessons on digital citizenship, we're also talking about just when they're online. Mm-hmm. But this one was one that connects with the content, you know, and the topics that you were using. Let me just share with our audience right quick where Mrs. Foscante got the lesson from. I know in our district, we are a Common Sense Media district. We love Common Sense Media. So when you go into Common Sense Media, make sure that you sign up, and then you can log into the system, and then you will have access to the digital citizenship here. And we have scope and sequence. You have your units. You have your grade spans here where you have K2, and then you have, so you have K2, 3, 5, 6, 8. And then you have various units for each grade band or grade span, okay?
And honestly, if you're nervous about integrating technology, if you're not sure about what components teachers are responsible for, this is a good place to start. And almost every lesson I looked at had little to no prep. So, I mean, you can really look at your plan book this weekend, find something that you can fit in with little to no prep, and I promise you, you'll find value in it.
Okay. And that's what we want to hear. And I'm glad you're excited about it.
I am. It's really, it's helping me. Yeah. I mean, these were things I was trying to fix on my own, create on my own. And although it's not the complete solution, we need to add, we still need to discuss, have our little projects to help use those skills. It did a lot of the work for me as far as where to start.
Yeah. I like it. And like I said, I'm glad you're excited about it. Yeah. So if you want to hear this broadcast again, what you'll need to do is to join and let me find that for you. Just join our community, go to your Google Plus community, and then you want to search for the Spotlighting Digital Lessons, Student-Centered Learning, and just join the community, and you'll have access to these videos or these broadcasts when they actually publish. So we will, as soon as this broadcast ends, it's going to be in that area, and you'll have access to it to watch it again. And if you want to get in touch with Mrs. Foscante and ask questions about key to keyword, so key to keywords, please do not hesitate to contact her. She loves to share. She shared a lot of things with me, and I enjoyed our conversation about this lesson. It gets very exciting. So reach outside of your school site, reach outside of your classroom, and start getting into these digital lessons, these digital citizenship. Thank you so much, Mrs. Foscante. Hope we can do this again.
Yes, me too.
Okay. Bye for now, guys.